Okay, chicos, here I'd like to talk to you guys about the nosotros commands today. Now, nosotros commands are not very difficult for us to form because if you know the subjunctive, you'll know how to form this command. It's pretty simple, as long as you know subjunctive. And again, like I've said in other videos, if you don't understand how to conjugate subjunctive well, this isn't the video that's going to help you that much. You need to go back and watch some of the other subjunctive videos. Because that'll go into some of the ins and outs of how to conjugate subjunctive, stem changing, which is going to be important when we're talking nosotros. Whatever the nosotros form is, the subjunctive will be your conjugation with little exceptions. So, stem changing verbs, if stem changes in the subjunctive, it means it has that same stem change here in the nosotros command. When it doesn't stem change in nosotros, but it does stem change in the usted command or ustedes commands or -2 commands. It doesn't matter. Some of them aren't going to stem change here. So you need to make sure you know when you stem change, when you don't stem change. And again, this isn't the video that's going to go into that. So if that doesn't make sense to you, I would go back, watch some of the subjunctive conjugation videos. When it comes to spell changing verbs too, that's still going to be part of the nosotros command. If you have a spell changing verb, like a cargar verb, you will need to make that change here as well in the nosotros command. So for the most part, it pretty much works out very well. As you can see, bailar, it's an AR verb. So we have EMOS, that E being the opposite ending. When you go to the negative command, it's just exact same thing, just with no in front of it. So very basic rule here. Amos, because it's an ER verb for beber. Amos, same exact conjugation, just with no in front of it. Amos and amos, because this is an IR verb. So opposite ending. So again, it's exactly what you would expect if you know how to conjugate subjunctive. So very basic rule when it comes to nosotros commands, just conjugate in the subjunctive. It's either going to add an emos or amos. Okay, that almost was great. But now we are actually going to add some rules. We have, like I said, I'll mention this and a couple other things about this. So here you can see it's got two commands. You can say vayamos in the affirmative command, or you can say vamos. Now, vamos is very common. It's irregular in the sense that, remember, think about what ir in the nosotros form subjunctive is. It's vaya, right? Vaya, vayas, vaya, vayamos, vayáis, and vayan. It has that's the form of ir in the subjunctive, so that's what it should be. But in the affirmative command, a lot of, you've probably heard this many times, vamos is used instead of vayamos. And so vamos is a real common command instead of that, but they're both okay. But the negative command, is no. No in front of it, but with the subjunctive. So what you would expect. So affirmative command is going to be a little bit different. So speaking of affirmative commands, I want to talk about if we have a reflexive verb, if you have an object pronoun, well, it doesn't only have to be a reflexive verb, but reflexive verb is a good way to show when you use it. So when you're doing a nosotros command, you're like saying, let's do this. So maybe we're saying like, let's wake up early. Levantar is your verb, or despertar would be to wake up literally, but let's get up early. Oh man, sorry, I'm a little bit off on my drawings there. All right, so let's go with levantar. Levantarse. Okay, it's reflexive, which means the object pronoun to go with this is the pronoun nos. So what we should do, which is follow our rules. Normally we would go to the subjunctive conjugation, levantar. It's an AR verb. So we're going to use the EMOS ending. Levantemos. Okay, levantemos. And then you should just add nos, right? Just put nos with it. So you'd have this. But the rule actually in nosotros commands is what we'll do is we have levantemos here, is we get rid of the S. We'll get rid of the S when we add this nos to it. Levantemos. Levantémonos. 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 Oh, that doesn't look very, that looks very much like an N there, doesn't it? Sorry, let's fix that. Levantémonos. But the nos right here, this should have you would expect it to have an S right there, but that's just the rule. You get rid of the S at the end of the conjugation when you're adding nos to it. Actually, you do the same thing when you're adding se to it as well. So again, it doesn't have to be it could be, it doesn't have to be a reflexive verb. It can be any other verb, like dar. Dar, for example, is demos. And let's say we're giving it to him. Let's give him, okay? Let's give him the, give him it. We would, if that's the case, we would have se lo to add to it. We'd have two S's, demoselo. We don't want to have two S's, so we're going to get rid of this S again. So we'll have demoselo. Now I'm going to go over object pronouns in another video, so if you're a little bit confused about the accent marks, I'll cover it in those videos. For this one, I just want you to worry about nosotros commands. So I'll get a real quick review over what we've talked about today. Is our nosotros commands are going to be the subjunctive conjugation of each affirmative and negative. Is a subjunctive conjugation. But when you add an object pronoun, you are going to have a bit of a change if in an affirmative command. So if you have an object pronoun, you might have a change if you're adding nos or se to your affirmative command. If it's a negative command, it's going to follow the rules like we normally would expect. Here, let me clear out a little bit of space because I want to talk about one more thing to add on. That's kind of fun. Let me get rid of a little bit more. Okay, so this is good enough. So going back to ear that we talked about in the very beginning of this little section, we're talking about ear. So as you noticed, as we talked about, vamos was the form. It's irregular, but it is the form that is used more often in the affirmative. And irse is also a form. Vamos is more like let's go, or where if you're making it reflexive, like irse, it's more like to leave. So we normally, if we add our object pronoun here, we would add nos. But remember the rule in Spanish when we're doing nosotros command is we get rid of the S. So we will actually have vamo. We won't have the S anymore, and then add nos. So if you knew the rules before, and you're just like, why do I hear vámonos all the time when it doesn't seem to, if you actually knew the rules, this would be, you might wonder why this was the case. It's because of this. It's because vamos is also, it's an irregular form. You use vamos to say ear in the affirmative command, but whenever you add an object pronoun, when you add a reflexive object pronoun to the nosotros form, the nos, you are going to get rid of the S at the end, and that's where vámonos comes from, because I'm assuming that you had, you probably heard vámonos before you even started at our program. So vámonos is, follows the rules. It's just vamos is not the typical, it doesn't really follow the rules of our normal conjugation, right? We should use vayamos, but in this case, vamos is more common. So you'll hear, instead of, you won't hear vamosnos, it's going to be vámonos, because the rule is get rid of the S before the nos.